This is the Weighing In Podcast with Rick and Jina. This podcast is a collaboration between Empower Weight Loss and Lifestyle Coaching and Next Step Lifestyle Coaching. In this episode, we talk about advocating for yourself and your healthy lifestyle. Is it selfish to make your weight, your health, the priority it deserves? Or is it instead actually being quite strategic? We talk about that and a whole lot more in this conversation. Advocating for yourself is up next.
So this recording has been a long time coming.
Yes.
I was thinking about that on my drive in today. I was like, okay, it's taken us like 3 weeks to record this podcast. So here we are.
Yeah. So this is great. I say let's just jump right into it. This is such a rich topic and one that's so important to people.
Yes.
But overlooked. So Jina, what are we going to talk about today?
Today we are talking about advocating for yourself in the world of weight loss, healthy lifestyle, and putting yourself first in the space of weight loss and healthy lifestyle, which is overlooked and very hard to do for people. I think it's a very, very complicated and rich topic.
Yes.
And we'll give examples, obviously, as we get into it, but that's our topic, is really how do you do that? Why is it necessary? Where does it come up as a problem? Like, how does it show itself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like the bedrock conversation to this whole thing rests on, we don't have to belabor it because it's something we mention in every conversation we have, is how hard the task is. But in particular, how people can sometimes, when not advocating for themselves, underestimate how hard the task is. Because it really is a matter of the less you advocate for yourself, the more you set yourself up for failure.
And I think the more you suffer,
Yes. And I don't think that's too heavy a word. I mean, some people may prefer struggle. People really want to put a positive shine on it, unsatisfied, but it's suffering. There's a lot of emotional suffering involved.
And I sometimes think too, and this will come up, that people don't recognize or realize that they have a choice.
Right.
And I think in talking it through, the end for me anyway, is that you always have a choice. And it's okay.
Right.
And I think that's really important for people, and it will cause them much less struggle and suffering.
Yes. And there are ways to do it effectively, advocate for oneself.
100%.
So this might do it better than anything. So we know the task is hard because of the food environment that we live in, right? It's insanity. Okay. So little Saturday night, late night reading, calorie restriction as a new treatment of inflammatory diseases. And I'd be happy to provide this to all of our listeners if you're battling insomnia next Saturday night.
Wait, this is your Saturday night reading?
Yes. Yeah. Well, not really,
okay.
But I'm joking. But so here we go. I love it in these studies that do a deep dive on either why it's so hard to lose weight and keep it off, or how to better lose weight and keep it off. I love when they mention the environment because it's so often overlooked, the unsupportive environment. So may I quote, Jina?
Go ahead.
In the study, they refer to another study published by Carlson and Hulsel. Carlson and Hulsel speculated that the abundance of food presented to humans in modern society contributes to a persistent drive to eat, which would make daily calorie restriction difficult. Now, isn't it gratifying to know that Carlson and Hulsel get it? Yes? Can we agree? Yes.
Agree.
Carlson and Hulsel published that statement in the Journal of Nutrition in 1946.
No.
Yes.
No.
1946. Let me read it again now. Now that you've got that. I know. Are you ready? Carlson and Hulsel speculated that the abundance of food presented to humans in modern society contributes to a persistent drive to eat, which would make daily calorie restriction difficult. Journal of Nutrition, 1946.
That's sort of mind-blowing to me, because I'm sort of wondering, like, what was the abundance of food in 1946 compared to today anyway? I mean,
Look, I'm gonna
like,
for NFL fans out there, okay, who are aware that the lineman, if you're under 300 pounds, it's over, right?
right, right, right.
So one of my favorite books growing up was The Diary of Jerry Kramer, was an offensive lineman for the Green Bay Packers under Vince Lombardi.
Mhm.
Routinely, the linemen were 240 pounds,
Yeah,
maybe 250.
yeah,
Merlin Olsen, he was historically big at just over 300 pounds.
yeah,
So it just goes to show you the norms have changed. And here they are talking about how hard it is to manage your food intake because the food environment is essentially insane. And it was 1946.
yeah. And
Unbelievable.
it's gotten way worse.
Yeah. You'd have to end the appreciation of the struggle with the paradox of people will, yes, nod and say, yes, the food environment is crazy and it's really hard. But the moment they are not perfect, they blame themselves because they didn't just do it.
Right,
Like
right.
try to square those two extremes.
No,
It can't be done, and yet I'm going to blame myself because I can't just do it.
right. And where's my willpower? I'm weak. What's wrong with me?
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get into that, but the minute you start judging yourself, how do you start feeling?
Right,
It's all negative.
right.
Hopeless.
Well, and how do you, yes, it's negative, and how do you move forward from that? I mean, it's a very hard space to find success in,
No,
you know?
no. And it could even turn into some sort of like, I'm not even sure if I deserve to be
Right,
successful.
right.
I mean, it really can go down some dark tunnels.
Sure.
Um,
Absolutely. We see it.
so, so the food environment, it was tough in 1946, but it's really another animal now.
Yeah.
And this is hard, hard work. And let's just make sure the whole conversation here rests on that as bedrock. So, in a crazy environment, you've got to advocate for yourself.
Yes. Absolutely 100%. And I think that the issue, I don't want to jump too far ahead, is that at least for a lot of my members, they see it as being either so awkward and uncomfortable or selfish. And
Oh,
so it becomes very difficult to do, yet it's so necessary.
yes.
I don't know if I jumped the gun on that one, but
No, that's exactly where we should go because that's probably the number one reason why people hold back on advocating for themselves. Why
mhm,
should everyone else have to suffer
mhm,
when I want to make special requests about what's being served or the restaurant we go to or even how we spend our time,
mhm. Well, they're not on a diet,
right?
so why should they have to give up? You
So
know?
maybe the quickest shortcut to, and we should talk more about that it's actually not selfish. In fact, you could argue it's the opposite, but would you just share, you have shared a couple of times in our discussions the old oxygen mask analogy. Can you just recap
Yeah,
that?
I use this one in class a lot so that, rather than looking at it being selfish, I mean, they say when you're on a plane, if something, God forbid, happens and the oxygen mask comes down, put it on yourself before you go and put it on your child. Now, your instinct is to put it on your child because you're a mother or parent or friend or whatever, but put it on yourself because you will be no use to anybody else that you love or care for if you cannot breathe. And
Right.
so that's an analogy. It's the same thing. You're not going to be around for, and when I say around, I mean physically and emotionally around for people if you're not taking care of you. And that's a very hard pill to swallow for people. I mean, it's been hard for me to swallow. I even sometimes fall into that trap, as I'm sure you have as
We
a
all
parent.
do.
Yeah,
We all do.
really.
So, okay, that's really interesting. It's just occurring to me as you say it, the whole long-term view
Hmm.
about being around for your loved ones. But let's also scale it back to a short-term view, because
Yeah,
it's sort of implied that you be selfish and be a miserable person because you're taking care of your weight and your lifestyle, and everyone around you is going to suffer. But you'll be around for the long term. It,
right,
it,
right, right, right.
it's the irony here is that when you put yourself on the front burner and start to really take care of yourself, you can actually start to show up more powerfully and
Hmm.
more effectively for others as
Hmm.
a function of your own self-care. I know you agree with that, but what would you say to
100%. And I also think too, sometimes people worry in the moment, what are people going to think? like of me, or if I do this or don't do this. And I think once they can get past the hurdle of people aren't going to judge you, you're just judging yourself so harshly, then yes, they're able to do what they want to do and they're going to show up very differently. They're going to have some confidence in that,
Yeah.
you know.
Let's go one layer deeper here. I know the answers I'm going to get, but I'm going to ask you anyway. I want you to just consider someone, let's say even say someone who was struggling, not on a roll,
Mm-hmm.
but they get on a roll. They get in action. They're
Yep.
showing up powerfully around their own weight and health management. Give me a
Yep.
word that describes how they're feeling.
They're showing up for it. They're empowered.
Empowered.
Hence the name of my new business,
Oh, yeah.
Empowered. Just have
Yeah.
to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Little personal
How can you not?
shameless plug.
Absolutely. Empower weight loss and lifestyle coaching.
There you go.
100%. So,
Sorry.
so here you are, a lot of people don't advocate and therefore compromise the extent to which they can get in action. But when you do get in action, you will feel more empowered. You will feel, can we agree, more positive? Do
Yes.
you feel a little bit more resilient in the face of challenges?
I can
Uh,
do it.
How
I
about
can do it.
how about more energy?
Mhm.
Feel more energy around
Proud of yourself, more proud of your accomplishments.
100, a sense of purpose. I mean, just the list go motivated, more
Mhm.
present, maybe. Some people might even report that their loved ones tell them they're nicer.
Yeah.
I've
Right.
heard that. I've
Right.
heard that. Yeah. So anyway, the whole point here is advocating for yourself so that you can get into powerful action around this critical area of your health. Yes, for the long term, undeniably. But that doesn't mean you're going to show up as the Grinch who stole Christmas while
Right.
you're working on your weight.
Right. And again, I think that's a misconception. To advocate for yourself or put yourself as a priority doesn't mean you have to be a jerk about it or an asshole about it. I'm gonna swear. You don't have to be an asshole about it.
Right.
Right. You can do it in a very, and I think that's mistaken. I think sometimes there's this thought that in order for me to advocate for myself, I'm gonna look like the bad guy. I'm gonna wreck the party.
Right. Oh, I'm going to wreck the party. Isn't that it? It doesn't that kind of say it?
Yes.
Wrecking the party.
Yes.
That's kind of how it feels.
And you don't have, it doesn't have to look, feel, sound, taste, smell like that at all.
Right.
And I think that's important for people to know too.
So, just simple summary, when you're advocating for yourself, even though it's hard, we're going to talk more about that, you're actually being more responsible, not more selfish. You're actually being more responsible around
Yeah.
what needs to happen.
I have a woman who is in, I've worked with her for many, many, many years. She's in her 80s and she has one grandson, and she lives for this grandson. And he will say to her all the time, Grandma, I am so proud of you for how you take care of yourself.
Wow.
This is a woman who it took her a very long time to get there. She always put other people first. She was a nurse for years and years and years, and she has started to really advocate for herself. And for all the people who think they're being selfish or wrecking the party, there's such a great personal example of a young boy telling his grandma, I'm so proud of you for taking care of yourself. And it's really a sweet story. And and I think that's the message that needs to be heard because it's an important one. Don't you agree?
How old is that? That's a pretty wise observation.
He's a very wise young man. He's 13, I think.
Wow.
Hmm. I know, pretty cool, right?
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
really impressed. So, of course, you're queuing me up here. You've used one of my favorite phrases, wrecking the party. So let's put that into context. So people act in certain ways that make my weight management difficult, yours, and certainly, I'm sure, the people who are listening. And I think in our earlier discussion, we talked about the fact that you could almost boil it down into two ways that people sort of show up. One is just out of genuine kindness. They might be gifting you with a gift that usually works pretty well to make us have, some great food.
Yep.
Let me bring over whatever, make up the food, cookies, a cake, whatever.
Right.
So, when we have the examples of that, happens all the time, right? Isn't food used so much now to
Mm,
show and to extend a kindness or to show
yep.
genuine love and affection for someone?
Yep. If someone is sick, or if someone has a family member who's sick or passes away, or even as a celebratory thing, food
Yes.
is it.
So that makes it hard. That makes it really hard to advocate for yourself. So I have a couple of anecdotes here that we've shared in our program that sort of tease it apart a little bit and show just how hard it can be. So I think we'll show this on the
Yeah.
screen. But so Carolyn, someone I've worked with for years now, she's no wallflower. Very comfortable advocating for herself, which is wonderful. She owns a veterinary hospital. So through the years, I've heard examples of people bringing in food because that's what they do to show their appreciation. So she has this one customer who, this isn't even the main story, but just for a background for our listeners. So this woman brought in mini bunt cakes from the store Nothing Bunt Cake. That's the name of the store. Yeah.
Wow.
And but here's the thing, there are 10 staff at the hospital. She brought in 48 mini bunt cakes.
48. That's four per person. Well, almost five.
And the word mini is very deceptive because the photo that Carolyn provided, they're not mini. They're like
Right.
bigger than normal, like a Hostess cupcake. They're bigger than that. God
Wow.
help us when we see the regular bunt cakes. Oh, I guess it's a bunt cake. It's a whole cake, but
Right.
they're big. They're big. So can we just pause on that for a minute? 48 of them.
Mm. Now, this woman brought them in out of the goodness of her heart, right?
Yes. Yes. But what makes advocating for oneself hard, it comes along with a card which says, if I may quote, "Thanks for always taking such good care of me. Olive, Olive the little dog."
Oh, so it's from the dog.
Yes, it's not, it's from the dog. So, so why do we even know about the bundt cakes? Because everyone was getting into them and, things were not going the way anyone wanted them to go calorie wise, right? So, okay, so that's the setup. So there are several stories through the years, but this one particular customer who brought in the bundt cakes actually applied for a job. So Carolyn, who loves the person, said, "Yeah, that's fine, but we have to talk about you bringing in the food, as you
Yeah.
so often do." So
Okay.
kudos for Carolyn for
So
advocating.
advocating for herself,
Yes.
uncomfortable because the woman's just being kind. So, okay, I get it.
So here you go. You ready?
Yep.
You probably know where this is going. After she was hired, she thanked Carolyn with a card. "Thank you, da 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 da. P.S. I promise to only bring food in on days that end with Y." Smiley face. Only on days that end in Y.
That's
Big
awesome.
smiley face. So do you
Right.
see how hard it gets?
Yeah, that's really going a layer deeper, I think.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's something in there that this person's getting by bringing in the food, but also I would say she has these clever, mm, innocent ways of deflecting
Yes.
the feedback.
So, what happened? We need to know.
Well, I have a photo which I will post
Yep.
of mostly empty bags that at one point were filled with candy.
Mm.
Too bad we didn't get an earlier picture. But when they were filled, Carolyn weighed them. 7 pounds of candy at one point had been brought
Oh my.
yeah, 7 pounds of candy.
Wow.
And to quote Carolyn, and it was the good stuff.
It was the good stuff. Yeah. It wasn't the
Yes.
crap.
So we don't have to get into, I think there's a lot going on there. But suffice to say that person doesn't work there anymore. But that was just one really clear example of how it's just not falling off a log to
Right.
advocate for yourself.
Right. It's very, very hard to do, especially in the face of goodness, because
Yes.
you feel like the jerk.
Yes.
And then that's a whole story that you create. So you don't want to be the jerk. So it's just, all right, I'll just go along to get along. But the person that suffers in the end is you
Right.
because you didn't do what empowers you, back to our original conversation. So yeah, it's
What an
tough, man.
observation. Think of this. When advocating for your own weight and health, when advocating for yourself has you being a jerk,
Mhm.
that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But it happens.
It happens all the time.
It
I hear
happens.
it all the time. And I think we have to have a real appreciation for, as much as we have the luxury to unpack this or to be objective looking at it, when it's happening to the person, it's very real, and and it doesn't feel as easy to unpack and to be able to figure out, well, what can I do about it?
Right.
So I think that's so important for people to understand that it's real. It happens once they're aware of it. And I think that's a big part of it, is just noticing. Then what is there to do?
Yeah.
What choices do you have?
Yeah.
So,
Let me just go one level deeper, but coming back to wrecking the party.
yes.
So, on one hand, when advocating for yourself has you coming across as a jerk, where it sort of seems like you're being combative when all you're doing is just like
Yeah.
advocating for yourself. But what about when the other person starts to, and it can be very subtle, but can be a bit combative, maybe combative's too strong, antagonistic. And basically, the more you look at it, you're like, oh, they're kind of thinking that you, by advocating for yourself, that you're wrecking the party.
Yeah.
But whose party are you wrecking? You're wrecking their party,
Right. Exactly.
right?
That says more about them, I think.
I think so too.
So, I mean, and just so people get where we're going, it's like when you go somewhere and they're serving birthday cake. I'm just going to make up a simple example. And they say, oh, would you like a piece? And you're like, no, no, I'm all set. Oh, oh, what? You're not going to have cake? And then some kind of a comment about it that draws, makes you pays attention to it in a way that is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it stinks because you've made a decision, and now you might go back on that decision again to make that person happy, but then you're the one who suffers in the long run because you didn't want it. So,
Yeah. And that comes back to our main first point, which is this is hard. This work is hard. And if you're not advocating for yourself, it gets harder.
mhm.
You hear things like, not necessarily these words, but people communicate to you the message that, hey, Gina, you're kind of wrecking the party right now. You're
Yeah,
wrecking the party. And no one wants to be that person. That's objectively not good.
right,
You're
right.
wrecking the party, right?
You didn't go to the party to wreck the party.
No, it's a party. And look, you are wrecking it. So, okay, but here's where we've talked about this in the past, a little funny. Your wrecking the party isn't quite as bad as it could get. There's another stage of wrecking the party that's worse than you're wrecking the party. You could have someone telling you, Gina, you wrecked the party. It's a fait accompli. It's over. It's done. You wrecked the party. There's nothing you can do about it. However, there's one third level, and it's the final level. That's if wrecking the party is bad, but you wrecked the party is worse. How about this one? You wreck parties. It's just who you are.
Now you're getting a reputation.
It's the
No one's
essence.
inviting you anywhere. Yeah.
No, don't invite Betty. She's going to advocate for her weight. She wrecks parties.
I mean, we can make light of it, but it's very real. And I think of it too. I mean, you can apply it to things like drinking too. I mean, if you've ever tried to not drink,
100%.
and people want their drinking buddy, they want their eating buddies. And if it's an intimate relationship, whether it's a friend or a spouse or, a very close family member, and you're not doing what they are used to you doing, it shines a little bit of a spotlight on them, and they don't like that. And so now, it can get it can go deep and can get very
Yeah,
complicated
it's a
for
little
people.
confronting, isn't it? The drinking one is even more like put it up to sort of analyze it. Is there some part of the relationship based on both of you drinking? But you can probably say the same thing about food. I mean, I get the wrecking the party thing. Oh, you're not gonna, I'm the only one eating the pizza right now. Really?
Yeah,
I'm the only one enjoying all these extra calories. Maybe there's a little bit of that in the background.
right. Right. Well, I do think there's some of that. And I mean, I don't want to sound like a negative Nancy, Nelly, whatever, but I wonder sometimes when people get upset that you're wrecking their party, or you're not doing what they want you to do in terms of food decisions or alcohol decisions? Is it more about their issue?
Yeah.
Right. And I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole, but I do think there's some interplay that's going on there, personal exchange, relationships, dynamic that's going on.
Hmm.
That's complicated.
Yeah, it's complicated. I think to end that particular part of the discussion on a positive note, let's not have black and white thinking.
Right.
Listen to our previous podcast, two ago. This is more about having the indulgent foods on your own terms,
I
right?
love that. I
On
love
your
that.
own terms, not with regret
Right.
or because you felt peer pressured,
Right. Or
which
because
happens
everyone
all
else
the
did.
time.
All the time. You
All the
you
time.
do it you do it just to, like I said, go along to get along. And then you go home and you wish you didn't do it. And I love, you said that a long time ago, Rick, that if I'm going to eat it, I'm going to do it on my terms. And
Right.
I think that is one of the best statements, because again, you're empowering yourself. If I mean, we've always said this, I'm never going to tell you not to eat pizza or not to eat chocolate. That's not our job. But our job is to give you the tools and help you create the habits and the skills to make that decision on your terms.
That's right.
Right? Which is what this conversation is about, empowering yourself to be able to say, you know what, I'm okay, I'm good.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And pizza. Who doesn't love pizza? And who doesn't want to be able to enjoy pizza and still manage their weight? And it's a possibility. It is something that can be done, but not if you're never advocating for yourself, because we're living in a pizza, chicken nugget, French fry world, and you're just going to end up eating too many of them.
Don't forget the Oreos.
Yeah, well, that's how we finish it all off.
Ah.
But not the double stuff. Those are crazy.
Oh, no, no.
Too extreme.
And
Um,
then I love when they tried to make them healthy. They're like, okay, we're going to come out with Oreo
oh
thins.
my goodness.
Right? That just cracks me up too. Anyway, we could go on for that.
So
But
you mentioned peer pressure. I have a personal story here. This is so interesting. I mean, I don't know too many people that own their commitment to their health management, like you or me or Bill, or the list is long. Coach Nancy, Coach Kate, basically everyone we ever worked with. We have a pool in our neighborhood. And when the kids were young, Friday night, pizza. Lots of pizzas would come in. A lot of the families, were all there socializing. And I learned pretty quickly early on, I needed to have some positive to-do choices available. I will never forget bringing in a Tupperware of corn that I had heated up because I wanted to have healthy choices. And it helps you eat fewer slices of pizza, and
yeah.
it just helps you feel like you're not giving up the whole thing. I'll never forget the ridicule
Oh, yeah.
as I walked in with the corn. I went back to get the corn and came in. And to be fair, it was a very large Tupperware of corn. Maybe I was thinking I was going to feed others some corn, but you know how that lands, right? Crazy.
Oh my gosh.
I remember this never deterred me from bringing in the corn or the broccoli or
Yeah.
whatever. I have actually many a big thermos of shakes I brought to the
Yeah.
pool. My experience there, though, was such an appreciation for how powerful peer pressure is. I
Yeah.
didn't feel good.
Yeah. You
It's
felt uncomfortable.
very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Awkward.
So awkward. It felt emotionally ugly, personally,
Yeah.
for me.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I'm sure you have examples of that where it doesn't deter you from your commitment, but it's very obvious. Wow, I'm a little unlike the others.
Yeah. I mean, I've had people tell me in the past, like, you need to eat a hamburger. Get that one a lot.
That's really funny because one of the punchlines and it was used a lot when I would come to the pool from the guys who are they're my friends. They were in the fantasy football with me. Hey, Rick, have they made a cheeseburger shake yet?
Yeah, I know.
It's so funny you mentioned the hammer.
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
get that a lot. But it comes from I mean, friends, I get it a lot from family. I have three older brothers, and boy, do they just love to rib me about it. But I think it's interesting that, you and I are pretty steadfast in our practice around living a healthy lifestyle. And obviously we do this for a living, and it's uncomfortable for us. So you've got to really appreciate how uncomfortable and real it is for people, and how it can get in the way of them meeting their goal. And if they understand it, are aware of it, now they can think about, all right, well, what can I do about it? What can I do to advocate for myself or to help myself in these situations?
I also think that as part of the judging comes in all the time, judging,
Mhm.
judging, judging. But even in the example that we just did with the peer pressure, we can decide if we want to cut this out of the podcast. But I seem to be committed to bringing the evolutionary perspective into every one of our conversations here. So
Yeah,
let me just fire away here and we can decide if we keep it or not.
I love that part of it. I think yeah, I want to hear it.
Yeah, so peer pressure feels bad. And there's a reason for that. So, by better understanding why it feels so bad, it might help us to cast less judgment during those moments towards ourselves
Mhm.
when we're feeling the pressure
Mhm.
and the discomfort of peer pressure. So, evolutionary, so a couple of books here. Dan Lieberman, local Harvard professor, incredible author, deeply researched. This book right here, The Story of the Human Body, I have so thoroughly outlined it. But a couple of quickies from here, which get at the peer pressure thing. 600 generations ago, everyone was a hunter gatherer,
Mhm.
no exceptions. Everyone. There were no one but hunter gatherers 600 generations ago. And without exception, you lived in small tribes of fewer than 50 people. That was it. And that was it for a whole lot longer than what modern society has captured in terms of history. So it was essential, and we've talked about how dangerous the times were, right? It was essential that there was cohesion in the tribes, right? So if you were isolated from the tribe, that did not work out well for you.
Right.
Food wise, safety wise, the list goes on and on. And if you were ostracized by the tribe, you were dead.
Right.
You were dead. You were exposed to the elements, you were exposed to predators, the whole thing, right? So it's been built into us through all of the generations before the 600, many 28,000 or something like that. I think that's pretty accurate, was to get the approval of your peers,
Yeah.
to be liked. Who
Yeah.
doesn't like to be liked?
Everybody does. I think that's fascinating. I love that you bring in the evolutionary side of things because when it comes to food, well, when it comes to behavior, but specifically eating, no one thinks like that.
No.
But there really is so much behind the decisions we make that once you understand it, like it brings it to this heightened sense of awareness. And you're like, oh, I find that fascinating. And then it allows you to know you have a choice. I keep coming back to that, but I think
Yes.
that's what's missing is that people don't think they have a choice because they've done things for so long and the same way and the same way and that failure syndrome and over and over and over. I think it's like, oh, wow, that's interesting. I have a choice. Once you understand it, I think that's fascinating. So yes, I love it.
We have a choice, but it's really hard to make the choice. So hopefully some of the conversations that we have about being less judgmental about others as well, but
Yeah.
certainly the finger pointing at ourselves, our bodies, our brains are acting so normally when we want the high calorie food. Others want to, often through kindness, want to give us high calorie food. We have to be clear about our why. We have to be really clear, and we have to also recognize this last evolutionary point. We have this intense desire to fit in.
Yeah.
It's baked into our brains.
Mhm.
And so just knowing that is like, you know what? You've heard the phrase dare to be different.
Yeah.
We need to be different if we're
Yeah.
trying to achieve a lower body weight or a healthier lifestyle, the long list of positives that comes
Right.
from not practicing the cultural norms.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. And sometimes you do have to do things a little bit differently, and it sort of seems unusual in this world. But like bringing corn to a
Who,
pool party.
what freakish behavior are you referring to? Oh, that means me. Yeah.
Are you known as the corn man in the neighborhood? I'm
Still,
just
still
kidding.
waiting on that cheeseburger shake. Let me give a great example.
Yeah.
The program member who was keeping off successfully 84 pounds, and we'll show this on the screen as well, but I'll just annotate it here.
Hmm.
So she shared the story with me. We turned it into a program material, and it was just such we come back to it all the time, an example of effectively advocating for yourself in a tough set of circumstances. So the headline, my friends picked a restaurant that they thought would be healthy for me. Again, genuine caring. That's where
Yes.
it's coming from. Look, they pointed out excitedly, grilled chicken salad should work. And then there was a photo of the menu, which we will show Southwestern grilled chicken. I don't need to list all the ingredients, but I will list the calories 1,468 calories
Oh my gosh.
for the Southwest grilled chicken innocent salad that, hey, this should work for you. Like the friends. It goes to show you people are not operating, if you're not operating from a paradigm of calories,
Yeah.
ooh, it's hard to steer the ship.
Well, right, because the word salad, I mean, listen, the salads in today's world in restaurants are higher calorie than meals, some of them. So,
Yet they're
yeah,
synonymous with health.
right? 100%.
I'm
That's
just
what I
gonna eat a
mean.
salad.
Salad is not a salad is not a salad. That's
Yeah,
what
it's
I,
like, oh my God, the Cheesecake Factory. Don't even get me started. But you don't have to
right,
go there. Anywhere, anywhere.
right.
You could ruin the
Yeah,
day with just the dressing.
yeah,
But the positive punchline here, I pointed out that my daily intake was about 1,400 calories at most, and that 1,468 calories in a single meal wouldn't quite cut it. She was nonplussed.
yeah,
She's a very skilled communicator. She
yeah,
acknowledged and shared and then just presented the information. And
yeah.
that was it.
A great story. Yeah. And I think for me there, that the takeaway is that she didn't go into that space of, oh, I'm going to upset them. It's going to be uncomfortable. Oh, I'll just go along to get along. She was able to kind of pause and just say, all right, wait a minute, what can I say to these people? And she clearly has very good communication skills, obviously. And that's hard for some people to do, but that's a great place to land.
She was so clear, not just in the communication to them, but like that's not an option for me. A 1,500 calorie salad. It's just not an option. She was like very
Yeah.
clear, and the
And
clarity.
in a nice way, like a pleasant way, not like a jerk.
No, but I'm speaking even more to clear in her own mind.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a good week, or I'll make up for it tomorrow, or gee, I
Yeah.
can't wreck their party here. I'm just gonna have the salad and the chips will fall where they may.
Go with it later.
None of that. You know what it makes me think of? I know we need to approach the end here, but it makes me think of all the Facebook Lives that we did with various members of from the clinic in Kentucky, the Milestone Fitness Center, where Chuck and Shane and Crystal and the list goes on. Whenever we would talk to them about because that people were unusually successful, had great success stories from that particular clinic, and every time we would have our Facebook Live conversations with them, they would come back to know your why.
Mhm,
Know your why. Be clear about your why.
mhm,
So, this is really hard work. We're saying that you have to advocate for yourself or it gets harder.
mhm,
You really do need to be crystal clear
mhm.
about where all of this lands in your list of priorities, knowing your why.
Yeah, and I think you need to say your why to yourself every day, I think, but especially in those moments where you know it might be a little bit challenging. And, just to kind of piggyback off of Bernie's story. So there's a woman in my program, Nancy, and so she has a huge family and there's always parties going on and she must go to 4 or 5 parties a week. And it's just
Wow.
constant with her. And so it's been very hard because she's somebody who loves to please people and she doesn't want to make things uncomfortable. She doesn't want to wreck the party. But she's come to learn that there's a phrase, and this was after time, we've worked together on this for a while, where she says, if someone says anything, she said, oh no, I'm fine. That's just not my food. And it's sort of just, not in a mean way and not like, but she's really understanding herself, like, nope,
Yeah.
that's not gonna work for me.
Mm.
And she's done her maybe front loading and she's got her plan where we're it, and I just think that's an easy phrase. And it isn't that to say that it's not her food forever, but it's not her food in that moment. And that seems to really work for her. So I think all these little takeaways that people can get from this are always helpful.
Love it. Love it. Makes me think of one final member story that I will share. This was about 4 or 5 years ago, but I remember this woman. I can't remember. I think let's call her Alice. She was struggling to lose weight in phase one. She would have periods of weight loss, and then it would kind of grind to a halt. So we would have what we would call at the time rebuild momentum conversations, where we would just talk about what stones can we turn over here to help you accelerate your weight loss. I learned in a particular conversation, no one knew she was on the plan. No one. Complete secret. And sure, and would spend a lot of time with family and extended family. And it was basically her trying to hide the fact that she was trying to stay in the box. So, once in a while, the old broken clock is right twice, right? I gave her some advice or a perspective that changed everything for her, which was I asked her to describe how uncomfortable it was wanting to lose this weight, spurts of success, but largely not losing the weight, concerns about not ever losing the weight, and everything that it meant in her life. And she embellished how uncomfortable. And I said, now I want you to pit that with how uncomfortable it is to just tell people you're on a healthy lifestyle plan. Which is more uncomfortable?
Right.
You've heard it a million times. Bill always says this in his sessions, and to me, it's like, choose your heart.
Choose your heart. I love
Right?
that.
It's
love that.
It's perfect. Advocate for yourself. It's hard. It's hard, but trust the relationships you have and the clarity of your purpose, and take your time with it.
It's also hard to be overweight, whether it's because you're uncomfortable or your health is at risk. So choose your heart. So I think communication is huge. And I think people need to know that they have permission.
Yes. And in many cases, it won't be a single event like this one magical communication. As with so much of this work, view it as a process.
Yeah.
A process. You're nurturing it. It's unfolding. You stick to it versus a single event, and the hurdles will lower.
Yeah. And that's such a good point, because you may have to say it to people more than once. And the thing is that repetition is the way that we learn, right? And so you would think, why do I have to keep telling people this? Don't they get it? But people don't get it, because people will say all the time, well, aren't you done yet with that silly diet? Aren't you done with that yet? And they don't get that what we're really doing here is lifestyle.
Right.
Teaching lifestyle skills and habits. And it is a process, and it is a practice, and it takes time. So be patient with that process.
Yes. Love that you're reinforcing repetition. People are usually self-conscious and feel like they're being redundant. Repetition is a necessary part of this in so many aspects of this work, including our communications to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I think this is, as with all of our conversations, we started to scratch the tip of the iceberg here. This is another one that I think we can come back to. Hopefully people are leaving the conversation realizing that this is a thing. Advocating for oneself is an essential part of this work. And it's a necessary thing. It's not just nice. It's necessary.
Right. So if people want to talk to us or get more information from us, they can reach me at Empower Weight Loss and Lifestyle Coaching. So check us out.
Sounds
Find
good.
us.
Me or Bill at Next Step Lifestyle Coaching. And in the meantime, definitely weigh in at our email for this podcast, theweighinginpodcast@gmail.com. So we hope to hear from you.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks for listening. And Gina, as always, awesome.
How much fun.
Talk to you later this week.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.